Hey there, my friends. It is Bill McDonald, the writing doctor. And of course, reading doctor, since the test is now immersed into one test for 3rd through 10th grade. I wanted to go over each grade level separately and focus mainly, like I mentioned in an earlier post last week, on Zero Land, how to get your kids from Zero Land, or what I call La La Land, to at least one land. All right. So the first thing that we need to know is, how do we make sure the kids understand enough of the prompt page to be able to even know where to start? So I'm going to give you a hand with that using my hand. Okay. The first thing that your students are going to have to know is that there is a topic somewhere on the page. Okay. And I had heard that a lot of kids didn't even know where the topic was, which has the keywords about the topic and which idea that your students had to come up with so that they could make a central idea, controlling idea, or thesis, which is their idea or ideas if it asks for a two-part topic. And so one thing to remember is the prompt, the topic, does not just have the topic, it asks a specific who, what, when, where, why, which, or how question inside of it. And if your kids can't see that, they might only be able to restate or repeat the prompt, but they're not actually clearly or even vaguely stating an idea. So, something that I had come up with last year to help because of that situation that I found was the word besties. Now, your students' most important besties are going to be their teacher all throughout the year, but the acronym besties stands for this: bullets. B. There's going to be 9 bullets that I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay. The E is, they're going to look for the word explain. That's where the topic is going to be. S of besties is to separate the T topic. Now, so we have best. Now we just need IES into easy or easier sections. So let me show you, first of all, using my hand. Here is a hand. And if your students can't use a graphic organizer, which is 90% of students on the test, then just help them remember that every prompt has a topic which has what they're supposed to use for their central idea. Notice that it's the center of everything. If I touch my palm, purpose, prompt, process of writing, think about all those P's regarding the prompt. So if I have an idea, I have to make sure it's in the I, introduction, in the B, the body, and the C, the conclusion, or the introduction, I, intro, the opening, and the closing, C. When I turn this W to an E, you're going to think of words like evidence, examples, evidence, EXP for explain, and EXP for explode. But the topic is going to have one key word or key phrase that either starts with a W or ends with one, which is the who, the what, the when, where, why, which, or how. So if your students write about the idea about the topic in the introduction, only I don't feel my muscles moving on the body and the conclusion. If I just touch the tips of my body fingers, these three right here, if you want to have three body paragraphs, you can. You're going to notice that I still can't feel. And even if you only mention the topic and the idea in your conclusion, that's not enough. Everything has to center around the topic and the idea that your students use. And that's the only place that I can feel that. So let me share my screen with you using my advanced document camera here. And so this was the third grade prompt. And remember, besties, look for the 9 bullets. There they are. The 10th one, you might teach your students this year, is going to be wherever the word explain is. The bullets, look for explain, then separate the topic into easy or easier sections. So that's what I've done. Explain, that's where the prompt, the topic is. The ways, so this keyword is the place where the idea is going to come from. Your students will need to tell me the how or the why. The prompt keywords, the topic, that soil is important to the earth. So if all your students wrote soil is very important to the earth, all they're doing is restating or rephrasing the prompt. Or if your students write the soil is important to the earth in many ways, well, that doesn't tell me the how or the why. And so that's why students that don't go straight from the topic, the idea, to the evidence, they're going to have trouble if they try to base their central idea only on the topic and not on the ways. Organize your writing. How do you get it? How do you go to two-land? Make sure that you have an introduction that more than likely will hopefully have your idea, a body with 1 or 2 examples or 3 examples of evidence that you'll explain. And the reason you need to explain is because it says develop your ideas in detail, making sure to use evidence from the selection in your response. So the evidence from the text, that's what's already there. And so when you develop your ideas, it's sort of like the way you say inferring is reading between the lines, explaining E, sorry, E, explaining is typing or writing between the lines. It's your students' understanding of the text and the way they explain it. And so the most your students can get on what is called development and organization, D&O, is a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3. The conventions is the last bullet. Use correct spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and grammar. So before I even go into it, I want to show you what I saw for 3rd grade, okay? The way it works, for those of you who are new to writing, is this. There's going to be 2 graders, whether they're humans or automated scoring engines, and they use the student rubric, the scoring guides to determine how well each student did in organization and development, and they'll give it a grade from 0 to 3, and how they did in conventions. If they did like 39% of third graders in Texas and got zeros in organization development from both automated scoring engines or both humans or one of each, whatever, then they had to automatically get a zero in conventions. And so I noticed that 39% of the third graders on this past test got zeros. It's not quite half, but it's pretty close. So that means that they're really struggling to come up with even a clear central idea statement that's based on evidence. 81% of the students got one of these combinations, that one of the two graders or scoring engines gave the student a 1 in organization and development, but a 0 in conventions because of the grammar not being strong enough. And the other gave a 0. And as you know, you automatically get a 0 if you get a 0 in organization development. 2 would have been, has to only be this way, that you get a 1 in organization development and a 0 in conventions by one of the graders or scoring engines, and the same thing with the other person or scoring engine. A 3 means that one computer scoring engine gave you a 1 and a 1, and the other one gave you a 1 and a 0 in one order or the other. A 4 means that you got 4 ones, and remember the possibility is not, you don't want to get ones, you want to get 2s or 3s. And so again, the lower half of the spectrum is students getting 5 or less. So that would mean that one of the graders gave the student a 2 in organization and development, a 1 in conventions, and the other one still gave a 1 and a 1. And so when I did the math using the Cambian results, that was 81%. So that means only 19% were able to get a score of 6 through 10. That to me says that something is not working, and I'm not going to pick on any programs or curriculums, but you just have to decide if your school, your district was in this side of the bracket, you have to do something differently. And I tried my best to explain that, because a lot of schools have used the same curriculum, the same programs, and unfortunately the same acronyms ever since I started teaching way back in 1991. And every single year, about 75% of the students get 2s, 1s, and 0s back when it was, you could get a 4. Nothing has changed, but unfortunately, we haven't changed the way that we teach the process and the the programs. So what I recommend that you do next is your kids could quickly draw a hand, and in a good essay, everything ties together in an ECR essay using those 5 bullets. Clearly state your central idea. Okay, so it says, explain what, the ways, that's the how, or you could say the why, that um, soil is important to the earth. Okay, I make sure that I responded correctly to the way the prompt was written. Yes, even the word earth is capitalized here. So remember, your students would have to be able to say something like this. Soil is important to the earth. In other words, I'm putting the pieces back together in these ways, or because, and then you can either give me 1 or 2 or three examples that you might find from the text. So what your kids have to do next is organize their essay. That was bullet number 2. So there needs to be an introduction, a body with 1, 2, or 3 examples of evidence that you're going to use to do the third bullet with, develop your ideas in detail based on that evidence. E, evidence, E, explain, E, explode. Because one of the ways to get a 3, it says that you have vivid word choices. Your vocabulary is precise. Okay. So when I looked up in the passage, because the idea has to be based on evidence, when I read the first paragraph, basically it said for me to do something and ask me a question. Paragraph 2 was what soil is. They didn't ask me what soil is. They asked me why or how it's important. Paragraph 3 was saying where soil is. Paragraph 4 is also where it is and what kind. And it wasn't until I got to paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 that I see that why soil is important or how it brings life to the earth. How? Well, by plants digging their roots down to find water. So it helps plants, basically, could be evidence number 1, my location, paragraph 5. My quotation, I decide which of this I want to use as either a paraphrase or direct quotes. Also, animals live in the soil too. They cannot live without it. They have from tiny little worms all the way to groundhogs. And in paragraph 7 and 8, they even talk about how we as humans cannot live without soil because since the plants need the soil to grow and the animals eat plants, we wouldn't have food, which would be the animals and the plants. So it's sort of like a little chain reaction, a cause and effect relationship, uh, what you might in science call a food chain. Okay. And so what I did was I highlighted the evidence yellow that I plan on using, and I even put my paragraph 5 in green, paragraph 6 in blue, and paragraph 7 in orange. So when you look over here, I actually wrote it in that way. Um, I want to be able to take that topic and idea and have some sort of introduction, either at least present, and later on we'll work on effective. Evidence 1, the location was in paragraph 5, and it had to do with us needing plants. That's the evidence. And the development part, the specific supporting sentences, I could explain with either 1 or 2 or 3 sentences or more if you're, higher than an elementary student. But all they want to do is see if your students have the ability to explain how plants help, are important, rely on soil to live. And then in our next location was paragraph 6, the animals. That's evidence number 2. Animals rely on being able to eat the plants that grow in the soil. And then evidence number 3 is people, the locations, paragraph 7 and 8. And you can either put it in quotations, the location, the quotations, and then the actual evidence, or you can tell me the location and you can paraphrase. Okay. So the last part, because organize your essay means there has to be the correct structure. There has to be a conclusion. And if you're going to use C, you can use conventions, or there has to be an ending if you want to use an E. And then you'll talk about the editing, which was the last bullet. So this part here is worth 2 points. All right. So why did some students get zeros? Well, I looked it up and I noticed that response 1 that got a 0, it says the central idea is what soil is. That doesn't say why soil is important. So I'm not going to highlight anything because nothing there applies to uh, effectively addressing the prompt. The author wrote the text because he wanted to persuade us. Why did the author write the text? That's not the prompt. They didn't ask that. So nothing in here is relevant to the prompt or the topic. The second response says, the soil is important because we use it every day. Okay. The prompt words are the soil is important. We use it every day. Because that part is vague, they need to go a little bit further. And they said to level the dirt. Well, that's irrelevant to why soil is important unless they can explain to us why level dirt uh, is needed to do something. Then that's not going to help. To plant food, there's an idea, but it has no support, as you can see here. It's not explained. It's just that's the only detail that came from not even the student's head, but from the text is to plant food. Then they had to give 2 zeros to these responses. So that's how to give a hand to your students in a nutshell. Again, you have your topic and your idea. Your idea will become your central idea, your controlling idea, or your thesis. And remember, it statement means like sentence. And so you would hopefully want to end that with a period. And for your basic students, you want to make sure that that opening has that central idea statement, controlling idea statement. Okay. But remember to base it on the evidence that you can find from the text. Evidence from the text. Okay. And we had said it was based on plants, animals, and people needing soil. Okay. And then remember, if you want to teach your kids to explain, don't try to teach them to explain all three before you've taught them how to explain one. So I would probably say, start your essay with what I call the I love you. What's your opening, your idea? Which one piece of evidence are you going to teach them the process for so they can explain that with one or two or three sentences? Keep in mind that uh, the more you explain and your ideas actually are specific supporting sentences to that evidence. In other words, who is going to benefit from plants? How will they benefit? Uh, when will this benefit take place? Where uh, is the soil going to come from that's going to be productive? Where will it be used? Where will it be found by the animals and the people who are going to use it? Just think of who, what, when, where, why, and that can kind of help your kids with explanation. And then an ending is simply either restating your central idea or rephrasing, or as your students progress in ability, they can reflect and think outside the box and talk about how our world is so dependent on soil for us to be able to function and survive in this world that we live in. So thanks so much for taking the time to watch the video. Please take time to share it with one of your teacher friends who's wanting to understand uh, the extended constructed response process and purpose of writing, and how to teach students at least the basics on getting off zero land. Thank you guys, and God bless.